shout out to Randy and the WATBA crew and all the folks that are represented here at TrailCon. I'm actually pretty excited to be here. My name is Greg Mumm. I'm the Executive Director of the Blue Ribbon Coalition. And I'll get to that Blue Who question here in just a minute, as soon as I give a little bit of acknowledgement. What y'all are doing up here in Wisconsin, every single time I come here, I'm pretty much dumbfounded. And some of what I have to say today probably really doesn't apply to you guys. And I'll tell you why it doesn't necessarily apply. It's because you got it going on here. If ever there were a state that I could point to as an example, as a standard that folks all across the country should be looking at, it's here in Wisconsin. And I think this TrailCon, the trail conference here that you've got going on is a perfect example of that. Innovative efforts to try and get everybody at the table working together toward the common causes. And when I was talking to Doug earlier today, I think the general thread, and you nod your head like this if I'm correct and like this if I'm wrong, and I'll give you the mic and you can correct me, but it isn't what makes situations successful on our end of things is when we're willing to set aside the differences and work on the things that we can work together on. And I think that this whole concept you've got going here, successful or unsuccessful, you've already won. Successful in your mind is thousands of people walking through the doors and swarming the place. And I suspect that you're going to see that tomorrow when y'all aren't working, or everybody in good state of Wisconsin isn't working. I suspect you're going to have that tomorrow. But the success that's happened here today is I'm seeing people talking back and forth and communicating. And one of the things that Doug and I were talking about is that over time, you get so busy in your work that you're focused on what you're doing. You're focused on the local issues. You're focused on the state issues. I'm focused on the thing that's right in front of me. You need to stop, like Jack Sharner used to say, and like Doug reminded me this morning. We need to stop and look up from our work every now and then and figure out what else is going on around us and reach out and touch those things. It doesn't matter if you're in the office. It doesn't matter if you're at home. You need to look up. You need to look up from your work every now and then to keep your family strong. You need to look up from your work every now and then to keep your business strong. And in the issue of advocacy for responsible recreational access, in order for that to be successful, you need to look up from your work every now and then and reach out and touch those other people that are working on their work so that you create this thread between it. And what I'm doing with the Blue Ribbon Coalition here on my Turn the Tide tour, come talk to me about it, I'll just give you a briefing of it here, is I'm looking up from our work. We're celebrating at the Blue Ribbon Coalition. Here's where I answer the Blue Who question. Blue Ribbon Coalition is a national recreational advocacy group. Our sole focus is on responsible recreational access on public and private lands and waters. That's what we've been doing this year. We're celebrating 25 years of that work in advocacy. And we have succeeded in many, many things that many, many people have no idea, but I can tell you this. There isn't a person in this room who enjoys recreation who has not benefited from the work that we have done at the Blue Ribbon Coalition. That's not to detract from the work that you all are doing, because everybody in this room has probably benefited from the work that each of you all are doing. But at a national level, the Blue Ribbon Coalition has been very busy for the last 25 years. We have members in all 50 states. We have some 600 member organizations. Our members consist of either organizations, individuals, and businesses. We've often been accused of being an industry shill. You know, big money from big oil or something like that. And I just look at those people and say, I wish. If they brought that money through the door, you bet I would take it and I would put it to work for recreational access. That's what Blue Ribbon is all about. We have members in all 50 states. Wisconsin, I'm proud to say, is one of those larger membership states that we have. We have a lot of organizations that have been long-standing members. Bill Schuman over here used to be one of my bosses. Will attest to that. Wisconsin is one of our better states in terms of membership. What I'm doing now with the Blue Ribbon Coalition is I'm looking up from our work. Now I'm making the transition over to what it is that I'm doing. I'm actually going to ride completely around the United States of America. And I'm going to stop and meet with all of our member groups, because in 25 years, it's time to look up from our work. Things are different now than they were before. And we need to make some adaptations as an organization. And I want to hear from our people what their concerns are, what they expect, so that we can remain a viable organization for the next 25 years. I'm going to be holding little town hall sessions like this, where I can hear the concerns of what people think need to happen to make changes from a government structure, at least at the federal level, if not the state level as well. And I'm going to gather those concerns up while I'm walking around and meeting with people all over the country. And I'm going to, when I get done with this ride, I'm going to get off the motorcycle and I'm going to put the kickstand down first. And I'll tell you that story. And I'm going to get on an airplane, and I hope they put their kickstand up. I'm going to fly to Washington, D.C., and I'm going to take that packet of concerns, and I'm going to meet with the leaders. Legislatively, I'm going to even ask President Obama and Mitt Romney and whoever else will listen to me. I'm going to meet with administrative leaders, Forest Service, BLM, Park Service, things like that, and I'm going to share with them. And if I can gather up enough of those, I'll get what's called the thump factor. I can drop it on their desk and it makes a difference, because all land use issues are politics. And the reason I'm going to on this ride is because all politics are local. And I know that. And so I'm here to hear from you. I've changed the board didn't approve it, my bosses didn't approve it, but I've changed my title from the executive director for the next 2 months to the CLO, which is the chief listening officer. So I'm out there to hear, to listen, and to ask you to track with what I'm doing. Plus, it's a pretty epic thing that I'm doing. How many people do you know that are 56 years old decided to sling their leg over a motorcycle that they can't even remember, put the kickstand down on, and ridden completely around the United States? I'm going to ride from, I left from South Dakota. I met with a couple of people in Minnesota that I know on the way here, but this was the first primary stop and kind of the kickoff stop. From here, I'm going to go meet with another group from the Wisconsin Off-Highway Vehicle Association. Then I'm going to go on up and meet one of your sister organizations, meet with them up in Iron Mountain in the UP. And then from there, I'm riding across that big old long bridge, down into Maine, Michigan, down into Indianapolis, across over Ohio, Pennsylvania, all the way up over to Maine, down the coast of Florida. No, that's the West Coast. For you guys, down to Florida. Zigzag across the south to California, back up to Washington and back. By the time I'm done, I'll be out there about probably, I'd originally thought 6 to 8 weeks. Now at this point in time, it's looking like I'm going to be out there 8 to 10 weeks, and it's growing. I took 5 calls this morning from groups that want to meet with me. Hallelujah, that's what I got to say about that. Hallelujah, because that's what this is about. I'm the CLO, I'm the Chief Listening Officer, and I want to hear from the grassroots. I want to hear 2 primary things. 1, what I need to take in terms of concerns to our leaders in Washington, and 2, what it's going to take for the Blue Ribbon to remain viable for those folks into the future. We're not perfect. We haven't gotten everything all right, and we need to make adjustments, and we need to move ahead forward, and we all need to work together. The third thing that I'm hoping to do in meeting with all this is to tie a thread, to help us all to learn how to look up from our work. Doug and I made a commitment this morning that as soon as I get done with this ride, we're going to have some regular calls to try and figure out how we can communicate better. Randy, you and I have actually done a fair job of that, but we could do better. And all of those that I've met with local clubs, we're here, we're accessible, we're your organization. You are what makes our world go round. So I want to hear that, and that's what I'm doing. The other thing that I need to tell you is the kickstand story. 42 some odd years I've been riding a motorcycle. Do you think this would happen when nobody's around to see it? Pull into the parking lot this morning to meet up with the guys, they're all pulling in, and I'm looking all around at them, sitting on my motorcycle and think about, I better go into the restaurant. For about 2 or 3 minutes of sitting there, I stand up and realize I didn't put the kickstand down. 800 pounds of motorcycle on the parking lot. Randy pulls up and he goes, what are you, draining some of that dew off that thing, or what is it you're doing, you know? There's another little story I got to share with you too. When I was a kid, I come from a family of 10 kids. So you can well imagine, with 10 kids, and then we additionally had 2 foster kids, you can well imagine what that was like for my mother when we were pent up with cabin fever a little bit. So when we were young, when we were starting to get into a little bit of trouble because we had a little bit too much pent up energy, we had a fairly good sized backyard that was about the size of this room here, and she used to make us go out and run around that yard 2-3 times. Or if we did something bad, that was the punishment, you know. Depending on how bad it was, there were a few times I did 20 laps, but we ran a path in that backyard. In fact, it was so bad, when I was growing up, you know, we started that, I can remember doing that when we moved into that house, I was about this tall. By the time I got to junior high, turns out the neighbor that lived next door was the track coach. And as soon as he saw me walk into the school, he thought, well, you've been training for years. They tried to get Fat Boy here to get into track because he thought I might be able to do pretty good, saw me doing them 20 laps. It was so, with 10 kids, you can imagine, we actually dug a rut. And there was no grass growing in that track in the backyard back there. And you almost didn't even have to look where you're going because it got so smooth and it was just a standard pattern like that. And that's what I'm trying to say when we get here. And what I'm trying to do is break that pattern. We need to step out of that. We need to be innovative. We need to be doing some things like TrailCon. And given that, the other is not about me. Because see, I'm the COO. So I'm going to take this microphone, I'm going to have you turn it down just a little bit because people will be holding it a little closer. I'm going to hand this microphone around, and if you got questions, or if you have something that you want to say, or that you want to share with me, I'm here to listen, and I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. If you don't, pass it on to the next person and they'll do it. If you're a little microphone shy, don't worry, you're among friends here. I'm going to start with that.
I don't know where to begin. Greg, I think that from the organizational level, I think it's important that you know, communication is the true key. And I think that within our organizations, we need to communicate a little bit more about the importance of getting out of that rut, like you say, and looking around and seeing what's going on, and then you know, being able to communicate with a national level organization such as yours and or ours, and you know, come up with some ideas and some plans and go with that.
So communication, that's one of the things that's key to where we go in the future.
Absolutely.
Pass it on.
Question.
Okay.
How do I get a job like yours? You know, to have a motorcycle for an office, that's got to be the ultimate.
I got to tell you, there are some benefits. When your job is, I got to ride that bike from hitch to woe, there are some benefits to that.
Sounds to me like you're having too much fun.
If you can't have some fun with it, you shouldn't be doing it.
No, I agree, and I like your concept, and I think your philosophy of getting on the firing line, you're going to learn a hell of a lot more than sitting in that office. And you're doing a good job.
Thank you.
Are they paying you enough?
I spent 11 years on the board and was instrumental in hiring Mr. Mumm up there. And I think we made a good choice. And I was so happy that he was going to be here because we haven't seen each other in a while. But good man, and if anybody's going to get the word out, Kurt's going to do it. Thanks, Greg, for taking the time and doing this.
Thank you for the kind word.
Just want to say thank you for coming to Wisconsin.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Hey Greg, I'm with US Trail Maps and we develop trail data nationwide, both motorized and non-motorized. What we find going on searching for the data is that it says segmented into by counties or by states or however, but it's all broken up into pieces, and to gather all the data is a feat in itself. My question is, how can you take the coalition to get these groups, because the stronger the voice or the more unified, the stronger the impact they'll have within each individual activity.
Break that note down.
I need a pen. I'm going to write this down because I think that's a key issue. I was just talking with some other guys about that earlier today, where, back when, so y'all can hear me. That's one of the key issues. I was looking at some of the trail mapping and things like that down here on the side of that. And, you know, not only are there some things going on in Wisconsin here that, you know, as I mentioned before, that's one of them. This bit with getting the trails down on the maps, getting and having it from the local level, I think that's one answer. But I think our biggest challenge, and this is maybe something that Blue Ribbon is on both sides, on where we can remain viable as an organization into the future, as well as something I need to take to the leaders in Washington, is there should be a national effort toward getting some consistency and getting that information into a single place. So guys like you that are actually trying to get it to the ground, folks like the guy that's putting the CDs out together out here and putting for memory cards in the Garmins and things like that, so that there's some consistency with that, and not in such a way that people are going to wind up being led to an illegal trail or something just because it was a track on the ground somebody turned in. So I think you have two things that I got to go write down here. One is we need to take a look at of how we can play a role as a national organization and start trying to coordinate an effort like that. And I should get your card and we should follow through, because I'll bet you got some ideas that I don't. So thank you for that. I'm going to write that one down. Next, let's do this side and then work our way back up. Let me write.
She's making notes for you.
Oh, are you?
What charge is it?
Okay, so we have communication too.
And just don't ask for a motorcycle ride, you may tip you over.
All right, I just, I guess I'm kind of a little dumbfounded right now there, so I'm just gonna say thank you for what you're doing.
I just want to expand a little bit on Doug's comment about communication. I think that's where you start, but I call it the 3 C's: communication, coordination, cooperation. And we're all dealing with the resource interest here, no matter what the user groups are, silent sport, motorized, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's the resource that we all want to share and enjoy. And so if you put those components together and can bring everybody to the table, I mean, everybody's a winner and in the end, as far as I'm concerned. If you're fragmented or segmented in your views, nobody's going to go anywhere. So, I mean, past experience can...
Congress kind of taught us that the last year.
So I guess that's the mission, you know, or the goal to try to obtain, if you can, so to speak, you know, is to bridge a gap between everybody and see if you can put the 3 C's into place, you know, because the resource is there, it's just how we're going to use it and utilize it and share it, so.
Can you repeat those 3 C's again? Communication.
Communication, coordination, and cooperation.
Communication, coordination, and cooperation. I'm gonna steal that.
You can.
I'm gonna steal that for my next presentation.
Well, thanks for coming this way, and I know you've been in a lot of off-road magazines and everything else, advertising and going from there. And I can't drive an ATV no more. I had hip surgery, and I gotta get my other hip done. But I've got a full drive off-road vehicle truck. I like to get out on more trails that we used to go on. We can't because they're either burned up or they're used for ATV roads that we used to go on, now they're ATV roads. I like to see more things opened up.
For four-wheel drive.
Yeah, four-wheel drive pickups and that. Or
Go to
Jeeps.
South Dakota.
Yeah, come on over to my neck of the woods.
That's pretty
We
impressive.
got some pretty good ones, but we got that down. That's a major concern that I think is gonna be a common thread for the various different ones.
I guess from a concern standpoint, in Wisconsin, we've dealt with an issue where trails get paved and then snowmobiles get pushed aside for quote-unquote a parallel path. I'm really encouraged to see and was instantly bit by the alliance or the TrailCon event that brought ATVs, equestrians, and snowmobiles together because we all share those mutual interests. So, you know, when activities take place that tend to exclude groups that were instrumental in the laying of that trail, there's got to be a better way. So, and once again, thank you for coming around and having this type of meeting.
Thank you.
I'm coming just to listen to the stories.
Well, I got a few more if you want.
I know that. I guess if you could, maybe a minute or so on what you have been working on nationally that might help us.
I'd be happy to take that minute right now if you all are willing. There's several things. Let me tell you how the Blue Ribbon Coalition works, first of all. Obviously, we're membership-based and membership-driven. We approach the whole concept of our advocacy is working in 3 playing fields or arenas. Number 1 is we work administratively, meaning we work with the land managing agencies in their various planning processes while they're going through that process, so that we can optimize the voice of recreation as they're making the decisions on how things are going to play out on the ground. Number 2 is we work legislatively because the legislature, state, national, county, all of those folks that put those, they build the atmosphere in which the agencies, the land managing agencies work. And so we work with them to optimize as best we can for the benefit of recreation. And then we also have our legal program. Because when all else fails, that's the last place we want to be. But you need to think in those terms from the very beginning. So when we work legislatively, we have probably one of the most, if not the most, premier land use attorney that we have on retainer. His name is Paul Turk with Moore, Smith, Buxton, and Turk out of Boise, Idaho. We run everything that we're doing through Paul from the very beginning in our advocacy. So when we come out the other end, if everything that we've done did not work, we have the opportunity and the standing to be able to take it to a legal program. And that's how we work with our grassroots groups who are working administratively or legislatively or whatever. That's one of the benefits of being a member of the Blue Ribbon Coalition. And you guys, because you have such a strong state group and because you're so well organized here, you probably haven't seen the benefit of that. So, unfortunately, in the last couple of years, we've had to lean a lot more heavily on that legal side. So we just announced this week, for example, the U.S. Forest Service came out with, back in April, with their decision for the new forest planning rules that absolutely elevated ecosystems, viability of species, It's like almost a flaunting to the legislature who set up the guidelines by which they're supposed to be managing for multiple use. And in this new forest planning regulations that they came up with, they've elevated everything over the top of that. And in fact, in their initial proposal, they even left recreation off. The term recreation. That's one of the prime things. You realize you're talking a $646 billion a year business that rural America depends on, that organized cities depend on because of their industry, who are there building the toys that we all do. So we're part of a lawsuit, a much larger group that has taken the Forest Service to task in the legal side of that. We're doing that right now. We've also recently, the BLM has come out with this ongoing effort to try and manage de facto wilderness. Salazar, for example, has come out with a wildlands effort. On and on and on. The latest one is the sage grouse, for crying out loud, and managing, public lands all based around that one. So we've had an awful lot of involvement with that. We have worked at the local level with several local groups with efforts that they've had an ongoing planning that have ended up through our legal program, like out in Colorado. There's through the travel management planning. Some people brought the travel management plan to task into court, and we've had to step in as interveners so that the voice of recreation can be heard, rather than the greedies who would seek to shut everything down. So we have a lot of ongoing efforts like that. In our history, they closed down Lake Powell to personal watercraft. We were able to get that back open. We've had a 12-year, 13-year ongoing fight at Yellowstone to keep that open to snowmobiles. And Doug and I, we covered a lot of ground this morning. We were talking about that. How does that relate to you guys in Wisconsin? Well, let me put it this way. You know the old saying that what goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas? What goes on in Yellowstone won't stay in Yellowstone. That's a line in the sand kind of an effort. In other words, and that's the other aspect when I say we are BRC, we're not the hired gun. We're here to help. You guys are the ones that get it done. We're just here to make it easier or to help you get through and negotiate that way through. So sharetrails.org or wearebrc.org if you want to track my ride. And I really would appreciate it. We got to make this as big as we can and share it with your friends. I mean, don't just read it. Email your friends and have them looking at it too, because you may just bring them something that they weren't hip to before. So there you are. Yes, sir.
I'm Pat Harkins from the Minocqua Forest Riders Snowmobile Club. I'm currently the president and also in the Lakeland ATV Club. Dewey Sternberger is the president of that club. So I'm in two of these clubs. And on a local level, I am struggling. I don't know how many other organizations are, just keeping membership, keeping involvement. Everybody's busy, they're both working, tough economy. I got 3 vacancies on my board of directors right now, and it's tough to keep people out there and going.
So the concern is with how you keep volunteers working and alive and having fun?
We've got, our membership is a 25-year-old club, and these people are dying. And they're too old to work anymore. And the younger members, they want to enjoy the benefits of the rides and that, but they do not want to get out there and brush, cut, groom, all the stuff that we need to do. And where the ATV club is about 5 years old, Lakeland ATV Club. I talked with the Dun Good Club out here, and they merged a couple of clubs, snowmobile and ATV Club, and I've heard statewide that some of that's going on. That actually the snowmobile clubs, which were kind of resistant to ATV clubs, are actually trying to join forces to benefit both clubs. And from your perspective, we're members and I get this stuff, and I just don't have time to sit and read pages and pages of stuff that's going on and bring it back to the clubs. You know, I can try to absorb some of this stuff, but frankly, I am maybe in too many things, I don't know, but I don't know if there's any way that you can say, here's 3 or 4 things that are really important last month that the board and coalition did, and I can pass those 3 or 4 things on to the membership easily without, trying to dissect.
So if we did like what I'm hearing here is a clip notes. And for those that want to be NEPA nerds, they can dig deeper if they want, but if we could simplify and do a clip notes type of thing so that you're sharing it out and give it to you in a format that you can share it out so that that information permeates deeper. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Well, that's kind of what I'm getting at, and hopefully would resonate with my board of directors and the members to emphasize what you guys are doing on a national level. They don't have time either to be sifting through the stuff, at least from my perspective.
Okay, we're playing charades now. Same thing you said this morning, communication. We're not getting the word out to you guys, what you're saying in an effective way.
You are, but it's 5 pages or whatever. You know?
Shorten it up, clip notes in the words. And the other thing I heard you say, if I heard you right, I want you to dig that a little bit deeper. The other thing I heard you say is we have a generational issue here in volunteers, and we need to address that. Probably at several levels, education and making it more fun for them, and things like that. And we could probably play a role in helping to initiate that sort of a program that people could just plug into, and we could all figure out how to do that a little better.
And I think that's all good, and it plays into our environment right now with less and less snow that we've had the last few years. We had the shortest snow season in northern Wisconsin, 60-some days. And a lot of that's marginal stuff. The ATV stuff, on the other hand, is growing registrations in Wisconsin. Snowmobile's on a decline registration-wise. And if there's some way that there'd be some simplification to merge clubs or have and in Wisconsin there is, but if I'm a snowmobile, I get 100% grooming funding, and then I want to put my ATV trails on it, the snowmobile clubs get cut, but they also add 75% on the same trails. And we got a lot of wet stuff, ATVs can't go on snowmobile trails, a whole bunch of freaking issues that we don't want to hear. But
Wait, what I'm hearing you say though is what we were saying before. I mean, TrailCon is that's what this is about, but we can do this at a broader scale as well. And we can find the places where we can work together and set those other things aside, and they'll come back along. You know, they'll come back out of the parking lot and we'll be able to address them if we learn first how to. I'm going to back up so I don't spit on you because I think. I seen you ducking. I seen her ducking.
There would be some examples of clubs that have merged successfully, some of these various groups. ATV, snowmobile club trails, or maybe dirt bikes or horses or something where they've gotten together and can share the benefits of all of the clubs onto the trail. And there are some good examples of that. Why do I have to reinvent the wheel, or someone else to reinvent the wheel, trying to go through all these motions to figure it out? No.
Got it. Good input, thank you.
What Pat said.
What Pat said, what he said. Charades again, just do this.
Greg, thanks for all the protection you give us at the macro level. As you know,
good way to put it.
Most of the access that we gain is really down at the micro levels, talking to your local county, working with your forester, stuff like that. You know, every time we go, by the way, I'm Brian Much, I'm an advocate for off-highway motorcycle. But every time you start to initiate something with the county, some agency, it seems like the same old tired stereotypical arguments come up about noise and erosion, and not to say that there's not some real issues with that, but it's often very exaggerated. I just went someplace and the first thing they thought of was motocross motorcycles and that kind of noise and that kind of aggressive riding. And you know, we all face these same tired arguments everywhere we go, and you know, not everybody is as articulate or as fast on their feet or as good at researching some counter arguments for that. So I think it would be great if we assembled a common toolkit that had answers to these things. You know, Canada did a study on what's the aerobic value of off-highway motorcycle. Because people say, oh, we don't need more motorized, we need people out there hiking. Well, they commissioned a study through a university, some graduate students did work, and they found out that trail riding on a motorcycle was just above jogging, just below something else. People didn't have any idea when they made the scientific measurements. And I think if we had a toolkit where we could pull out information papers or answers,
studies,
right, and commission some studies,
common local
where there's gaps, things like noise, all this, we all know that a trail in the woods, that noise is attenuated, it doesn't bother anybody. Yet people that have never seen a trail in the woods, heard a motorcycle or an ATV in the woods, have a problem with it because they imagine it to be a certain way. We need a toolkit that anybody can access. When they go to the meeting, they can all equally answer with good scientific, substantial evidence.
Real science.
Right, instead of
Not
1,000
advocacy
people struggling
science.
with this, let's build a kit that 1,000 people can avail themselves of the benefit of.
Good.
Answer the questions, it takes away the argument. I mean, I've been through it myself. By the time you sort through it all, no one really had an objection once you get the facts out. But they thought they did before you got the facts out.
I'm trying to think of the word, you know, for archive or something like that, but you know, you're right. And if we could even make that into something that was like, for those that are smartphones and things like that, if we had built an app around that where they could very quickly pull that stuff up and information, that's good input.
There's only 7 or 8 common issues that keep coming up all the time. Let's answer them. If we don't have an answer, let's commission the study. Talk to somebody at university, graduate students, and grab that ball and run with it.
So I've
heard paper.
So I've heard 3 things here. One is that to have this kind of archive of information. Toolkit readily available. I also heard you talking about that some people don't know quite how to address these things.
Not everybody knows how to find this.
Right, so maybe what we need to do is come up with some sort of a training program so that people even know what the process is and have that available to them.
Just make it visible. They can, once they know it's there, they'll be able to manage.
Someplace that they can go. And the third thing was make sure that
if we don't have an answer, let's commission a scientific study, and this isn't a big deal.
Find the funding and do it.
You talk to a university, people are looking for things to study. Let's get the scientific answer the question, and then put it to bed.
Good input, thank you.
2 things. First one is, I think the AWSC here did a great job of communicating to the clubs and then the clubs and the members about this whole Yellowstone thing. Hopefully there were tons of letters went in from Wisconsin to support that effort. The other thing is, you know, you mentioned about the National Forest Service, and you know, you're operating at the macro level, and obviously the local foresters have to follow those directives to a certain extent, but yeah, at least in our part of Wisconsin, you know, we've been very successful with just letting the local ranger get to know us. We've got 6 clubs that meet with the Nicolay National Forest Ranger quarterly, and through that effort, we've been able to develop quite a network of interconnected ATV trails. So I guess my point is that we need to, even though all this bad stuff, if you will, is going on at the national level, you need to know who your local Forest Service people are on the ground and get to work with them and work within the parameters that they've got to work with, and you will get some trails done.
You know, I actually think I heard 2 things there. You don't realize it, or maybe you did, but the 2 things I heard was, in fact, you started that, you finished it, and that is you need to encourage our folks to and help them to get to know their local rangers and their local land managers. And the second thing that I heard there is we need to offer a message of hope too. You know, people are upset and frustrated right now, and a lot of that's because, you know, it's like did you see the exclamation point up here show up? A lot of that is because our message is always, here's what's going wrong. Maybe we ought to talk a little bit more about here's what's going right, and get that out and let people follow by example. You guys are having success here. How come we aren't sharing that with people? So I guess that was the second thing I just heard there. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Thank you. I just wanted 2 comments. One, keep the economic impacts coming to us, because the best sales tool we have on a local level is having, you know, the tourism and business impact that it has on a local trail, a local area with local town governments and county governments and that kind of thing. The other thing is, I just attended a Trails Conference down in Lexington for Southeast Equine Trails Conference, and the Forest Service presentation.
Wait a second, y'all know what equine is? Is that some kind of drink in Wisconsin?
It could be.
I know y'all know what it is.
Anyway, the Forest Service team there on their new planning conference or procedure was a whole lot different than what they are pushing on the executive level on a national basis.
So we could learn.
They're all rosy on the local forest level and planning recreational access compared to what you see on the national level. So,
thank you.
I just want to say your CLO comment was perfect, spot on, and I think make sure you take that with you, that's listening, right?
Yes.
And the other thing is your comment about communication is very important and brought forward better yet at the back there. And the fact, work on the things that we can work on rather than the difference we have. And I'm a big proponent of that. And that being said, education, and I don't mean go to college education, I mean continue, please bring this message loudly across that we need to educate you on, no, you're not listening to the little window there that we could have fixed, rather than the big window of all the things we couldn't fix. So please keep that message coming. It's an awesome measure, really perfect.
Good enunciation on that.
I know what equine means.
What did you do to your arm?
We can get to that if you want. But I'm actually here for the newspaper, but I'm also here as I'm listening and decided to speak. I came up with the phrase, Langley County is the county of trails. So I figured I want everybody to give me a nickel every time we say it, which hasn't happened. But I also was involved with turning the Moccasin Lake Ski Trail into an equine trail, a horseback riding trail. And it went very well because I'm hearing people talk about multiple use and doing these things like this. And it's a wonderful way to do it. I mean, you've got a ski trail in winter, you've got a trail that's just sitting there in summer, turn it into a 4-season trail. It keeps people from vandalizing. It keeps people, keeps it in shape, provides more funding. I think there's a lot more opportunities to do that across the system. The thing that I'm seeing at my little tiny trail up there is there's a problem with perception. And there's a perception among some horse people that is unfounded that motorized people want anything for themselves and there's nothing for the horse people. There's a perception among some of the motorized people that the people in the horse community want anything gated and closed and burned, and that's the farthest thing from the truth too. So the groups can work together. I know Andy, and Andy and I are buds, and he presents, he's out in White Lake, and I'd love to take him riding, and I'm sure he'd take me forward. But there's a perception that the groups can't work together. I think that's false. The other problem that we see up there, and I'm sure you're seeing it on your ATV trails, is it's not misuse by the responsible riders. It's not misuse by anybody that is taking the time to sit here, go to these conferences, be a member of a club, be a member of a horse club, be a member of a volunteer. It's the rogues out there, and it's not. It's rogue ATVs, it's rogue snowmobilers, it's rogue people skiing and on horseback and doing anything. But you go out to trails and you're seeing signs damaged, you're seeing gates that are just to preserve non-motorized access in small areas. They're pulled up. And the big problem that you're seeing, I think, across the system is you're seeing dumping in the woods. And everybody is seeing that, everybody on ATV has seen that, everybody riding on a horse in the Napa or wherever, you've gone out there and you've seen those old refrigerators and you've seen those old microwaves and all that crap that's sitting out in those woods. It's not anybody here, but it's a problem. And people see that and they blame the people, they blame the users. And it's not the responsible users that are in these groups. It is the rogues, it is outside people. And I don't know what you can do about that, but that has bugged me forever and ever.
So what I'm hearing is two things from you, two primary things. The first is that we need to have a focus on improving our perception, or the perception that others have of us, collectively. And the second thing, which is near and dear to my heart, is as I was in my old role as the executive director, and that is to find ways to get all of the groups, the various different modalities, whatever they might be, working together in a better way. So we need to have two focuses in that respect. And one is that outreach to improve our image, and the other is to continue to push. That's the one thing that Blue Ribbon does do, is that you all might, I don't think I mentioned that. We have snowmobilers, ATVers, motorcyclists, hikers, bikers, equestrians, hunters, fishermen. I just had some mushers from Alaska join us, rock hounds, and all of that, and find those forums where we can work together. You know, maybe TrailCon's at a national level.
But find those forums where you're working together and you're pushing out the roads, you're pushing out, you're making it unacceptable for people to go into the woods and misuse it, to go into the woods and use it as their dumping ground.
Stay on the trail or go home.
Yeah.
Stay on, put your helmets on or go home.
And police them and keep.
Wait for the, follow the rules. Follow those basic rules between equestrians and ATVs. When you meet on a trail, or go home. That's sort of
equestrian, is that a South Dakota word? Equestrian?
Equestrian?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a South. It's not a South Dakota drink.
Thank you for coming up here too, we appreciate it.
Thank you for your input. Let me take this question real quick.
My question is for Lisa before she stands out here. Lisa, this is going to be a day ride or a night ride? How far are we going? When are we going to get there? It's up to you.
That's going to make it. I don't have headlights on mine. And you gotta wait.
Let me address one more here.
I don't know Lisa at all. Did you say you work for the newspaper?
The newspaper.
You are in a perfect position to get your message across, for God's sake.
We do it every day.
But you're sitting here telling Greg and us, let's see that article in the paper right now, what you just said.
Andy, have we published a lot of stories about that stuff?
Yeah. Because if it's in writing, it's true.
You know what else?
Saying it doesn't mean nothing.
You know what else? Here's one way that we can make that more people know that was written, because we need more people like you. If I give you my card, you should send me those stories and I'll put them up on my website. Look at what they published here. This is the truth from the grassroots. And maybe that's a column we ought to start, the truth from the grassroots. Dang it, Dan.
Wow. That was powerful.
Let's move on. So, let me get this one and then I'm going to come to you.
Just to come to your comment about the roads, because I know in snowmobiling that exists. And Doug, maybe you can be more insightful on the efforts that the AWSC has had recently to try to drive registration to the club level through the what's the program?
Our CAP Step
program. Because I think that fundamentally that would have an effect on trying to bring these roads into a more responsible behavior on the trails.
I wasn't aware we had any roads in snowmobiling.
Oh man, the door was open for that one. How come you guys don't throw me softballs? We're gonna get to you.
Through our CAT Step initiative, as has been known as the last couple of years, we're trying to provide recognition to the clubs of the efforts that the clubs take to develop and maintain a trail system. But also we're encouraging through that initiative, we're encouraging people to join clubs, which from my point of view will hopefully enhance our ability to communicate with some of those individuals who participate in those unsavory type activities.
Will you do me a favor, Doug? Will you write that down in your head, and when we do the committed call, let's go back to that and circle back around and see if I can't pick up some of what you guys are actually doing and find a way to put that into Blue Ribbons.
Sure.
Little Lupa things.
Sure.
Where are you at?
I
I just want to say I came representing an ATV club, but as I sit here, we all have the same problems. Whether we're horses, snowmobiles, ATVs, and I think your first thing of communication is the key thing. And I just want to tell you thank you and have a safe trip and get home safely.
Thank you. TrailCon. I heard TrailCon there again. Got a couple more here that I can do.
Sorry, we're standing back in the room, I had to wait for a phone call. So, I'm Dave Millman, I'm the Vice President of the Association of Wisconsin Snowmobile Clubs. And I'm one of the NEPA freaks that you're talking about.
NEPA nerd.
NEPA nerd.
All right, we all need NEPA nerd.
I had been the chairman of our environmental committee for the last 12 years, and that's what we do is worry about access issues and things that can affect snowmobiling. John mentioned about working to keep Yellowstone open, and I was the one behind that for the last 12 years. And I just wanted to mention that right now there is a comment period going on our supplemental impact, current state, supplemental impacts, environmental impact statement, and it ends on the 20th. So you got 3 days to go online and make comments yet. And I know you got something on the Blue Ribbon website where you can go on there and you just click on there and send a letter. So take time to do that yet for the 20th. Also, I guess my other major point would be the same as what John had mentioned too, was work with your local people, because you can get a lot done when you get to know your local rangers, your local land managers, and you guys do a great job on the national level, but I think here at home we can do a lot just by working with our local peoples and making them partnerships with them and get a lot done that way. So.
Okay.
Yeah, hey, Bridget Brown. I know a lot of folks here, Wisconsin DNR. I heard you guys were talking about us earlier, so I thought you know what happens when you lie. Come on.
We all shut up when you came in the door.
Yeah, there was a real quick shuffling. So I'm the Trails Coordinator with the Department of Natural Resources. I work with Gary and a lot of you folks here to try to improve access, improve standards, to do what I can to get folks to work together within the department, outside of the department, whatever we can do. In fact, yesterday I was meeting with a large group of folks, including a mounted policeman. And it was great because I learned an awful lot about how to desensitize horses, for example, to loud noises, which I think is a great way to get more horse access onto trails with motorized use. And so I think there are a lot of little things that we can do. Sort of on the state level, I work a lot with the water regulations. So if anybody here has actually tried to put in a trail, you've probably in the past few years run into some fantastic issues with water regulations. And I have good news. In about 2 weeks, I have a meeting with the head of water regulations for the state and her assistants. And the entire topic is how to ease and make more consistent water regulations for trail projects. So we're making some progress. It took me about 2 years to even figure out what water regulations were and what this big myriad of stuff was and the morass that we deal with sometimes with trail projects. But I think we're finally making some progress, so wish me luck.
Good luck. Got just a couple more minutes here and then I want to do a summary, make sure I get whoever else might have something to say that I should be listening to.
Hello, I'm John Jones. I've met most of you, I guess, today. I'm with the State Horse Council Trails Committee, and we are proud to have been invited to this meeting. I think it's going to do us all well. Actually, I've worked with quite a few of the ATV people and stuff at a prior invasive species thing. So, but it's an excellent idea, and I think we're going to go. This is going to get better all the time. Keep it up. And thank Adam for inviting us. I think it was his idea to invite us to this motorized thing.
It was my wife.
We appreciate it.
TrailCon.
Yeah.
I got time for one more here, I believe.
State Representative Jeff Mercer. I just glad to work with all the groups, and I just sometimes it really gets really frustrating on the state level trying to get everybody to work together. You know, it's just, we have some great examples where multi-use trails are very successful in the state, and I think we need to somehow accentuate those different places and get that news out so people understand that it does work, and it does work very well.
Thank you. Let's get one more question, and then I'm going to summarize up here. What did you have there?
I just got to shoot off my big mouth. I'm looking at the age group of all of us sitting here. I feel kind of young today, but talking about issues, the generational gap, and take it for granted. We got this today, we'll have this tomorrow. I mean, I don't care what recreation interest you have, but I see that time and time again. My concern is the generational gap and getting the younger generation involved in these topics we're discussing. The purpose for being here today, I see that as a real problem. I don't know how you address it, but I think, you know,
we got to find a way.
We got to find a way. It's important, or we're going to lose it.
You know, there's always mitigation to every issue that you have. I want to wrap this up. First of all, thank you all for coming. Hugely important to me, and I see I have several pages that I get to take from this, and it's been very, very valuable time for me. I want to summarize up with 3 things. Number 1 is, it doesn't end here. wearebrc.org, which, by the way, my wife told me when she saw this, she said, you know, one day years ago this might have worked up here, but you could have used bigger letters and gotten more attention if you actually put it around. wearebrc.org has a click at the top. You just push it and give me those comments. It doesn't end here. When you go home, I know I put you all on the spot, but you're gonna leave here and go, dang it, I wish I'd have told him. And I hope you do that. Dang it, I wish I'd have told him. I'm here to listen. I'm the CLO, the Chief Listening Officer, and I want to hear, because frankly, it isn't about me being right here. It's about us getting it done together. And that can't happen unless I hear from you. You click on it, give me the comments. It's real easy. And track what I'm doing. It's gonna be fun. Yeah, it's a fun job. It's a fun job. Right until you tip your bike over. Thank you very much, y'all. Have a good day.
It is really good having you out here. I want to let everybody know, tomorrow we anticipate the bigger day. Hopefully we're right on that assessment. But we're going to have some raffle prizes tomorrow that we're going to